All right. It's a live post-game show. We're live after Pitt's loss to Clemson at Acrisure Stadium tonight, a 24-20 defeat. I'm just going to kill a couple minutes here to allow people to filter in because, boy, howdy do we have a lot to talk about with this game today, this game tonight. A game that, I'll be completely honest with you, I came into this game expecting Pitt to just get thumped. I expected Pitt to just get totally walloped in this game. I did not think it would be all that competitive. My personal instinct felt like Clemson would just control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They would get pressure on the quarterback a lot, which they ultimately did. I wasn't wrong about that one. And they would, control on the offensive side of the ball and run the ball at will and, just control it. And that didn't necessarily end up happening. We'll talk about why. We'll talk about Pitt's defensive performance in this game. We'll talk about Pitt's offensive performance in this game. We'll talk about the second half turnaround and how Pitt was much better in the second half than they were in the first half. Pitt was the better team in the second half, certainly compared to the first half. We'll talk about what went wrong and how they missed and how they were just unable to come through with a pretty big upset. An impressive upset. Biggest upset of the year, win over a ranked opponent. Pat Narduzzi has beaten a ranked opponent each of the last 8 years, going back to 2016 with the Clemson game. In 2016, he has defeated a ranked opponent every year since then, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. He's still looking for that win over a ranked opponent this year. There's two games where it could be. It could be today or it could be next week at Louisville. And when it was 96 seconds left to go in the game and Pitt was ahead 20-17, I thought, well, there's the ranked win for 2024. The streak stays alive. Narduzzi wins over a ranked opponent 9 years in a row. And we'll have a nice, fun post-game show talking about an 8-2 team coming off a big win. A win that sort of reassures you. Here's the thing, though. All right. Obviously, that didn't happen. That didn't pan out. They're not 8-2. They're 7-3. Losing streak increases to 3. They're now 3-3 in the ACC. They're in a lot of ways spiraling, but damn if they didn't do enough in this game to show you that they are still capable of playing good football. And I think, there's probably a decent portion of the fan base that wondered after the last 3 games and maybe the last 5, if you want to go back that far, or at least back to the Cal game, that wondered if this team was capable of playing good football. And I think they showed you in the second half that they still very much are capable of playing good football. Now, they only scored 13 points, and there's a lot of reasons why they only scored 13 points, and we'll get into all of those reasons. But offensively, in the second half, they put up 264 yards of offense. They averaged more than 5 yards per play. They converted 5 of 11 on third down, which was a respectable 45%. They were 1 of 2 on fourth down in that half. They ran 51 plays. They won time of possession, but some of that was due to the defense playing so well. They played well. Not perfect. Obviously, they only scored 13 points. They still gave up like 5 sacks. What number? I just saw 4 sacks in the second half. So, there are still holes and there are obviously still issues, but in the second half, you got a glimpse of what this team had shown itself to be for the first 5 games of the season for sure, and to some extent, the first 7 games of the season. And so if you found yourself in the wake of, SMU and in the wake of Virginia, wondering if this team was still capable of playing well, wondering if this team was capable of being good, you at least can come out of today's game saying, yeah, you know what? They are still capable of that. Things haven't gone the way you would hope it would go after they started 7-0, and maybe even after they started 5-0. Things haven't gone the way you hoped they would go, but they showed, I think, that they're still good in this team. And I think they showed it with some of their play there. We're going to talk about all this. Listen, you guys can jump into the chat. There's already people in the chat. It's awesome. You guys can be super chatters to make sure we read your comment and question. We'll get to those right off the bat because there's 3 already in, and we appreciate that. The things we always ask you to do. Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. This is a place to get all of our Pitt video content, our daily morning Pitt videos, our weekly live stream every Wednesday night at 8:30. These live shows after the football games. We only have 2 more in the regular season left and then 1 more in the postseason. because, of course, Pitt is bowl eligible. They can't take that away from them. I guess Pitt could decline, but I digress. And we'll get some post-game shows going in the basketball season as well. But if you want to make sure you don't miss any of it, like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on your notifications. That way you get the an alert sent to your phone every time we go live, every time we post something new here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All right. I want to get into the comments and questions, but there's this main point I thought about on the whole ride home. And so I'll start off with this. Okay. And I apologize if I'm going to blow my nose every now and then. You might hear that my voice is a little huskier than usual. I thought about this a lot on the drive home from Acrisure Stadium. You know, I mean, they always say every game comes down to like a handful of plays. Every season comes down to a handful of plays, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the reality is that a team that wins, there are a handful of things that team does to win, you know, and a team that loses has a handful of opportunities where they can look back, and say, that was the spot. Like that right there was the opportunity to win the game. The game was lost in that moment or series of moments. And I think there are probably some obvious ones. The game was lost when the quarterback for Clemson ran for a 50-yard draw from the 50 with a minute 20 left to go in the game. That's when ultimately the game was lost. But Pitt had opportunities to win this game, a number of opportunities where they could have put this game away, defeated Clemson, and walked out with a victory. The fourth drive of the second half, which was the drive that ultimately ended with the field goal. Or no, it wasn't. The fourth drive of the second half did end with a field goal. Excuse me. Pitt was down 17-7. And on that drive, they get 1st and 10 at the 21. And this is an obvious one. The obvious came later when they got to the goal line and then committed 3 procedure penalties to back them up to the 16. But before that, all right, the fourth quarter has just started. Pitt's down 17-7. First down, first play of the fourth quarter. Nate Yarnell throws to Dejon Reynolds for a 12-yard completion, right? 1st and 10 from the 21. Yarnell drops back, throws to the end zone for Raphael Williams, drops it in a basket, drops it right into the bucket. And yeah, the Clemson defender's arm is in there, but it's a catch that you got to make. It's a catch that Raphael Williams has to make. I don't think Nate Yarnell could have thrown the ball better, but Williams didn't catch it. And it's just a catch you have to make. And then the very next play, Desmond Reed gets them down to the 2, and you think, okay, they're still in business. You know what? That's another one. You need to get into the end zone. I think Reed was, tiptoeing along the sideline to begin with. And so that's a tough, balance for him to hold. Williams needed to catch a touchdown pass. Now, of course, they get to the 2. Derek Davis loses a yard on first down. They get 2 yards on a little flip forward to Gavin Bartholomew. Things were already out of sorts at that point. When they ran that play to Bartholomew, it looked like nobody really knew what was going on or what was supposed to happen. They end up with 3rd and goal at the 1. Pitt calls a timeout. They come out of the timeout, 3rd and goal at the 1. They get an illegal formation penalty. They come out of the illegal. They've gone from 3rd and goal at the 1 back to 3rd and goal at the 6. They come out of the illegal formation penalty. They get a delay of game. They come out of the delay of game. Now 3rd and goal at the 11. They get a false start on BJ Williams, who otherwise I thought played fine against a very tough defensive line. They end up at 3rd and goal from the 16. Pass to Pape Williams is incomplete, and they have to kick a field goal. That's one of the spots. Anytime they had to settle for a field goal when a touchdown was that close, when you were inside not just the 20, not the 15, the 10, but the 5, you were inside the 3, you were inside the 2, you were at the 1, and you have to settle for a field goal. That's a missed opportunity. 2 Pitt drives later, though, is really the one where the game is tied. It's at 17-17. Pitt has scored a touchdown to pull this game even. They're in the final minutes of the game. The game has gone under the 2-minute warning. They've already had a false start penalty on this drive with Jason Collier, but they overcome it with some great passes, a long screen with Desmond Reed for 13 yards, and then a swing pass to Desmond Reed for 14 yards. That converts the first down. They go into the 2-minute warning. They're 1st and 10 at the 17. You know where this is going. Desmond Reed runs for 1 yard. 2nd and 9 from the 16. Clemson calls timeout. Now, this is an interesting sequence, and this is an important sequence. And I'm going to this first because at the time, after these first 2 plays, I said, it seems to me that playing for the field goal is being too cautious. Game's tied at that point. Clemson is calling its timeouts. It's under 2 minutes to go, but you really want a touchdown there and to use as much clock as you possibly can. So they hand it off on first down. Felt like that was a little bit cautious. Second down, I don't think they intended to hand it off, but they get a false start on Gavin Bartholomew. Now they're in 2nd and 14. And what Pat Narduzzi said after the game is that he said this like multiple times. There's nothing I hate more than running up the middle in that situation. I don't want to be conservative in that situation. I don't want to be conservative. Well, the play calls were conservative. But according to Narduzzi, the second down play, when they were on 2nd and 9 from the 16, they actually got the look that they wanted and would have had man coverage, and because Clemson was loading up to stop the run, and they would have had an opportunity to make the play they wanted to make there, but they get the false start. And once they got the false start and got into the 2nd and long, then they decided basically to mail it in. And so they hand it off to Desmond Reed for no gain. Clemson calls another timeout at the minute 50. 3rd down and 14 now. Nate Yarnell does drop back to pass, and he's sacked for an 8-yard loss. Makes it a tougher field goal for Ben Sauls, but he converts the 47-yard kick. But you don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that sequence. And maybe Narduzzi is saying this is what he would have preferred if not for the false start on 2nd down, but I think you have to be aggressive there. You can't play for a field goal there. You can't go into it and saying, all right, great, we're going to make Clemson use all their timeouts, and then we're going to kick a field goal. No. Make them use all their timeouts because you are picking up a first down. That first down play was 1st and 10 from the 17. You could get a first down. Touchdown's ideal. Get at least one first down, so you force Clemson to use all their timeouts, and then you have 3 more downs after that. After Clemson uses their timeouts, a couple more downs, that you can run more clock. So when Clemson eventually gets the ball back, either after a field goal or a touchdown, they're going to get back with less than a minute to go. Because Clemson ultimately scored in 20 seconds or 25 seconds or whatever it was. And so maybe, that was a moot point, but you could have run more. You could have taken more time off. You could have scored a touchdown by being more aggressive there. But the false start kills them. Now, as we know, they get the ball back one more time after Clemson goes up 24-20. And they're driving. They make plays. They get down there. They're 1st and 10 from the 35. Less than 30 seconds left to play. Desmond Reed gets a check down pass over the middle. Great job by Nate Yarnell getting out of a defender who's got him in his grasps. Nate Yarnell checks it down to Desmond Reed. Reed doesn't quite get the first down. He's just short. And this was a point of contention. I think a lot of people were upset about this, and understandably so. Pat Narduzzi doesn't call his timeout. He waits 8 seconds to call the timeout. The clock ticks from the time Reed was down at 22 down to what they ultimately reset the clock to at 14. It's 8 seconds lost there, where Pitt is now 2nd and 1 from the 26 with 14 seconds left to go, as opposed to 2nd and 1 from the 26 with 22 seconds left to go. You cost yourself at least one play, if not 2. I think Narduzzi hesitated on calling the timeout because he thought it was a first down. And he thought the clock would stop, they would reset the chains, and then they could run the play, and he could keep that timeout in his pocket in case they needed it. I can only guess that was his calculus, but it obviously backfired. I don't know if it was a lack of situational awareness. I think it was believing that Reed got the first down. And when you watch the replay, the ball ends up on what yard line did the ball ends up on the 25. It just looks like Reed was probably down before the ball got to the 25. But I think that's what Narduzzi was waiting for. But my point in all of this is that there's just a few plays that you have to make if you're going to win games. Raphael Williams has to catch that touchdown. Desmond Reed has to get 2 more yards into the end zone. The pass to Gavin Bartholomew. This is another one. So it's 2nd and 1 from the 26. After the timeout, they have 14 seconds left to go. Yarnell throws to Bartholomew over the middle, and the pass is broken up by a defensive tackle who's engaged with the blocker, just puts his hands up and breaks it up. Bartholomew probably gets close to the 10-yard line after he catches that pass because he had a lot of space. He certainly gets the first down, which stops the clock and gives Pitt another shot, a closer shot at the end zone, probably 2, and he gets that much closer. These are the little plays. These are the little plays that separate you in these close games, and you either make the plays or you don't. The Clemson defensive tackle got his hand up and broke up the pass. He made the play. Yarnell and Bartholomew did not. Cade Klubnik runs for 50 yards. He made the play. Raphael Williams did not. And it's not a slight on these guys. I'm just, it was that close. One or two plays go the other way, and Pitt has this game. Pitt wins this game. They were that close. And it doesn't matter that you're close. And I mean, moral victories don't count, blah, 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 blah. We're very tough. We're, no participation trophies. Moral victories don't count. I know. But you know what? They played really well in the second half. Couldn't quite cash in on all their drives. Only scored 13 points. They needed, those 4 scoring drives to be 17 points or 21 points, not 13. And if they're 17 points, then you're going to overtime. And if they're, or actually, no, because if even one of those field goals is a touchdown, now you're 24-24 and you're kicking a field goal to win 27-24 instead of needing to get the touchdown at the end there. So they score on 3 scoring drives in the second half, a touchdown and 2 field goals. If it's 2 touchdowns and a field goal, they probably get a 4th field goal and they win the game. It's that close. And that's how close they were in this game. And I think, I understand anger after every loss. This should be more one of disappointment, I think. Frustration of like, boy, this game was there to be had. But if you want to take a positive out of it, they probably looked better than they have in a few weeks, offensively and defensively. Again, against a pretty good Clemson team. Not the national championship Clemson teams of the past few years, but a pretty good Clemson team. They looked pretty good. Particularly in the second half. And I thought the defense played well throughout. I know Clemson scored 17 in the first half, but even then, it didn't feel like anything easy was happening for Clemson. It didn't feel like Clemson was really controlling the game the way I expected them to. Phil Maffa had 17 yards on 17 carries. He came into the season. He came into this game with like 900, almost 1,000 yards rushing on the season, averaging better than 6 yards per carry. He averaged 1 yard per carry. They finished with 58 net rushing yards. 50 of those came on one play. The other 26 rushing attempts, which includes the 5 sacks, gained a total of 8 yards. Pitt played well defensively. Pitt, they had 1 turnover. They got the 1 fumble early in the game. And so maybe that was lacking, but the pass rush was getting after Klubnik. The run defense was obviously very stout. And I thought they did a good job with some pass breakups. I thought defense played well. The offense just needed to turn a little bit more, a few more touchdowns and less field goals. All right. I'm going to get into the comments and questions before we get our shot here. Sean McHugh is a super chatter, an early super chatter, but I'm trying to find, you got a comment here, buddy. I want to see what you said. Maybe he's just supporting the show. We appreciate you, Sean. Well, oh, there it is. Sean says same sloppy play as last week. Are the procedure penalties in the red zone related to late play calls from Bell or an issue with the backup quarterback getting the call information set? Yeah, that's a problem. I had the list here. Pitt had 13 penalties, I want to say, and 3 of them were false starts. 1 was a delay of game and 1 was illegal formation. That's 5 procedure penalties on offense out of your 13 penalties. That's 25 yards that you set your offense back. An offense which has struggled to play well and move the ball in recent weeks. You set them back 25 yards with procedure penalties. And yeah, I do think they were getting the play. They would still be they would be huddling, which is not something we've seen this team do a lot. They'd be huddling and they'd still be in the huddle with the skill guys, at least with the quarterback and the receivers and running back and tight ends. The offensive linemen would be up at the line of scrimmage. They'd have everybody else in the huddle until like 15 seconds on the play clock. And then they get lined up and then they're motioning and shifting. You got to run the play. You have to run the play. And so whether that's on getting the play in too slow or the new quarterback not making the calls quickly enough, whatever it might be, you need to run the play. There's nothing more important than that. I don't know if your plays are going to work, but I know for sure they're not going to work if you don't actually get a chance to snap it because you have a delay of game or a false start or an illegal formation. I don't know where that sloppiness came from. I think some of it might be the quarterback change. I don't want to blame that on Nate Yarnell, but sometimes you get a different cadence. You get a different sound of somebody's voice, different expectations. You have probably almost certain sort of a feel for the quarterback of when he's going to snap, what he says, what he means, how to hear him. And that's tough to, I think there's a little bit of a transition there. And it hurt them here. 13 penalties 5 are procedure penalties on the offense. 3 more are lining up offsides, all in a row, 3 plays in a row, and they still got off the field. It was third and 20 something. They give them 15 yards in offsides penalties, and they still get the stop on third down. It was that kind of day for Pitt's defense, I think. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that sloppiness. I don't know why that's been happening. But obviously it's important, and they drop more passes too. Not as many as last week. It didn't feel like as many as last week. But it was still, they were being dropped. RJ Seaman 38 says 3-9 last year sucked. So proud of our team. They go 7-5. That's awesome improvement. Narduzzi gets credit for changing. I'll be honest. I'm gonna mute so you guys don't hear me blow my nose. I mean, that would be unpleasant, right? I'll be honest. Like, look, we've lost sight of the fact that Pat Narduzzi underwent a pretty significant overhaul this offseason and completely did a 180 on his approach to football, his approach to offense, and what he likes to do. We talked about it so much when it was working. That doesn't mean that it didn't still happen. And for somebody who's often accused as being stuck in his ways, or somebody who's often accused of, refusing to change or refusing to adapt. I mean, that change and adaptation happened. Now it's hit some struggles. It's hit some rough patches. I don't think there's any question about that. And, they have to find a way out of it. But the change still happened. And I think he does still get credit for it. But they have to find a way to pull themselves out of the mire they're in right now. David Greenwald says, too many penalties. Should have been a touchdown on the goal line and not a field goal, and the defense failed at the worst time. You sit back and protect. Don't be too aggressive. I don't think they were expecting a quarterback draw. I don't know that they were necessarily blitzing. Pat Narduzzi said they didn't run a stunt very well up front. And so, maybe Clemson was able to catch Pitt in it, something that way. But I don't think they I don't know. I have to go back and look at that play. Actually, I have the ESPN video pulled up right there, but I'm not going to sit here and watch it with you guys on the live stream because that's, boring to do. Boring for you at least. We'll go back and look at it. We'll go back and look at the tape. God, I almost said it on my own. I might have to do the shot now because I'm almost quoting Narduzzi without intentionally quoting Narduzzi. All right. Before we go to the comments and questions, and obviously we'll get to super chatters as soon as we can. Before we get to comments and questions, it's time, folks. It's time to kill the bottle. Now, we reserve the bottle killing for special occasions. I can't remember what the last one was, but here we are. We're killing the bottle. We've had this bottle for a while. It's gotten us through the season. There'll be a new bottle next week for the Backshore Apparel shot of the game. I guess I have to pick something, right, for the shot of the game. You know what? I tell you what it is. All right. The Backshore Apparel shot of the game goes to Nate Yarnell because Yarnell took shots, a lot of shots. We're about to take a shot. He took 8 sacks. There were 8 times he got sacked. I think there were probably just as many times he got hit after he threw the ball. Nate Yarnell got the crap knocked out of him today, and he did not miss a single play. I don't even remember being slow getting up very often. And he kept battling. And so, we might have our opinions on who the best quarterback is for this team, or who gives them the best chance to win, or who's the best this or that. Nate Yarnell goes 34-54, 350 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He had minus 20 rushing yards based on the sacks. The sack yardage cut into everything, but he had some key first down pickups with his legs, and he just got knocked around and just kept battling. So Nate Yarnell, man, I don't know how I'm going to drink out of this bottle. Look at this lid. Who would do this? But Nate Yarnell, the Backshore Apparel shot of the game goes to you because you took a lot of shots in this game and just kept battling. I asked him after the game, I said, how are you feeling, man? You got hit a lot. And he said, yeah, I'm a little sore, but I'm all right. I think he felt good just to be out there playing and playing relatively well, especially in the second half. So Nate Yarnell, here's to you, sir. I forget when that other time was that we killed the bottle. Was that the Sun Bowl, maybe? It only happens every now and then that we killed the bottle live on air. But there we are. Via con Dios to the Elijah Craig. We'll see what next week brings. Guess I'm going to have to get out to the store, right? I only keep one bottle of whiskey in the house at a time. My throat was already kind of jammed up, and now the whiskey's doing its work. All right. Benjamin Glazer says, love you, Chris. Vintage Pitt. Defense great until they weren't. Offense bad until they weren't. Sloppy coaching. One undisciplined, the other overwhelmed. Love Pitt in all seriousness. Look, I really think, and people hate this kind of thing, particularly after a loss, and I get it. But I really think you can look at this and be like, all right, that sucked. There were all these opportunities to win. There were all these chances that they had that they could have won this game. They could have got that big win, break the losing streak, get a ranked win, get themselves back in the right direction. Maybe even get back into the polls or get back into the college football playoff ranking with a win. Be 8-2, 4-2 in the ACC. Like really start cranking away. Like turn the momentum. And I get that. Like I understand the disappointment with that, but. Again, they played, I think, some of the best they've played in the past probably month, particularly in the second half. Defense the whole game, although the defense has been pretty good. I think they were very good against Cal and Syracuse for sure. Not so much against SMU. Okay against Virginia, but pretty good today. Pretty good today against Clemson, and I think the offense showed signs of life of how they can succeed. Right, like it started to feel. In the Cal, Syracuse, SMU, Virginia stretch, like there's no way for this offense to succeed anymore. That this offense had lost track of its ways to win, of its ways to move the ball, of its ways to succeed. It felt like the offense had lost it. They showed signs today of those things they can do to get it back. Finding Konate Mumfield open in the zone, giving Kenny Johnson tough contested catches to make. And I think Johnson, he must be banged up or something because I felt like his playing time was limited today. But, he's a big playmaker for them. Konate Mumfield can make a lot of important catches. Gavin Bartholomew's touchdown play was a great play. It was a great throw. It was a great catch. It was a great play call. It was a great route. Like everything about that was exactly what you wanted it to be. And a number of Konate Mumfield catches in the zone were exactly what you want them to be. And that's what he was doing in the first 5 games of the season. Desmond Reed catching a pass and going out and taking off and getting big gains. He had 108 yards on 10 catches today, in addition to 68 rushing yards. Desmond Reed reminding you, like, you know what? I'm pretty good. Like I made a lot of plays, been really good this season. They hit that lull of those 4 games. And now, I think this second half against a good defense, I mean, Clemson's still Clemson. They might not get transfers, but they still get top-rated guys. And I think they're still really talented. And then went out and made plays and did a good job. And they didn't block them. I'm not going to say that they blocked Clemson. Clemson still crushed Nate Yarnell, 4 sacks in the second half, hit him a bunch of times. The targeting play, like, that's the kind of thing that, like, collapses. Like, you end up with, like, a bruised lung on a shot like he took on the targeting play. And so it's not like they were really protecting him all that well, but Yarnell made plays. The receivers made plays. The tight ends made plays. Jake Overman had another great catch. Desmond Reed made plays. Like, they don't completely suck, is what I'm saying. And for a stretch there, it probably felt like they did. For those 4 games, it felt like they did completely suck. Well, I think they showed today that there's still some life in this team. It's still some life in this offense. That they went through a rough stretch, went through a rough patch, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay in it for the entirety of the season. And so I think like I'm not, I don't mean to sit here and be your therapist and help you find the bright side of life, but like, I think you could look at it and be like, you know what? They just hung in there pretty tough against a really good team. And they lost because of things they did themselves. Like they were more than up to the task of winning. You know what it felt like? And you got another super chatter. I'll read it in a second here. You know what it reminded me of a little bit? Like the feeling walking out of the game, not necessarily the game itself, although a little bit. Walking out of the game, it reminded me a little bit of the Notre Dame game in 2018. If you recall the 2018 Notre Dame game, I mean, Notre Dame was clearly a better team than Pitt. Clearly. And Pitt was in kind of a rough spot. They just beat Syracuse, but they were, I think maybe 3-4 at that point. Notre Dame was top 5 or whatever it was, and Pitt took them right down to the wire. I feel like the final there was 19-14. So even a bigger, margin of victory in that game than in this one today, which ended up being a 4-point game. But they battled, and I think they came out of that game, again, not a moral victory, but feeling like, all right, you know what? There are some things we can do here. We might be kind of good. I think was sort of the general vibe coming out of that game. And obviously they went on and rattled off wins against Duke and Virginia Tech and Wake Forest to win the Coastal. There's no Coastal to win this year, but I think this game today can be a bit of a springboard into next week at Louisville of like, okay, you can have some confidence in the offense again. They drove down at 3 scoring drives in the fourth quarter. That's positive. That's encouraging. They had a good second half overall, picked up yards, moved the ball, and got Mumfield involved, got Kenny Johnson involved, got Dejon Reynolds involved, got Gavin Bartholomew involved, got Desmond Reed involved. Like, that's what they do. And that's what they did well earlier this season. Is what they need to get back to. And today, for some stretches, they did. RJC Man says, NIL makes the next man up almost impossible when the injury bug hits any team. Look at all the parity in college football. It's a whole new world now. Yeah, I mean, I think it is tougher if your backups leave for the transfer portal. You're not going to have as many experienced backups ready to take the field for you in the event of injury, and Pitt has certainly had theirs. They were on their backup quarterback. They got Ryan Jacoby back out there today, and he stayed for a while, and then he got hurt, and they went back to Jason Collier on the backup running back, backup left guard. They lost Daniel Carter, their number 2 running back. He's done for the season, Pat Narduzzi said after the game. They lost their center. Lyndon Cooper came out, and Terrence Moore had to come in and play for him. And, Sincere Lee, I would say he's probably their wide receiver 4, I would say. Right around that 4-5 range, and they lose him as well. So, I mean, a bunch of injuries. This is in addition to the left tackle that they lost at the beginning of the season. They have a first-time starter in Jackson Brown at right tackle. I mean, like, there's a lot going on there, and that's tough. It's tough when you have to dig into your depth, regardless of how you've recruited or anything like that. And then you throw in the transfer portal situation where you're not going to keep a lot of good backups. I think it's even tougher to build that kind of depth. So, yeah, I agree to some extent. It can be hard to go next man up, but you have to do it. You have to go with the guys you got and try to succeed. Byron Nelson says no one will be held accountable for such incompetence by the coaching staff. I'm going to take a drink before I answer this. The coaching staff of the defense allowed Clemson to go for 244 yards in the first half, 102 in the second half. 5.7 yards per play in the first half, 3.8 in the second half. The coaching staff made adjustments to Clemson, and I thought they played well against Clemson in the first half to begin with, but made adjustments and shut down Clemson's offense for the most part up until one play in the fourth quarter when it was absolutely crucial. It was a game-changing play, but it was one play in the fourth quarter. Pitt's defense had pretty much controlled Clemson throughout the second half. Thanks to coaching staff adjustments, I would say. I mean, we always are so quick to say, where are the adjustments? Where are the adjustments? Well, here you go. How about this? They didn't score until the final, minute 20 of the game after scoring 17 in the first half. And the offense, I think, improved as well. 13 points. Again, 3 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, 264 yards, 5 yards per play, 45% on third down in the second half. The offense improved as well. And so you can talk about coaching staff incompetence because Narduzzi waited 8 seconds to call a timeout when he thought his guy got a first down, and it would have been a waste of a timeout. You can talk about this or that, whether they should have been more aggressive trying to score instead of settling for a field goal. I'm not going to say the coaching staff is absolved of blame in this game. Everybody takes some of the blame. But I don't know if it's quite as dire as you're saying. No one will be held accountable for such incompetence by the coaching staff. Plus, who's holding them accountable? Like, do you want Alan Green to fire Pat Narduzzi right now? Not sure I follow that one. Let's see. RJC Man 38 says 3 things that continue to hamper Pitt football. ACC officials are a problem. Pitt coaching situational awareness blows. Play calling inside the red zone was the worst ever. Yeah, I mean, the officials, I don't know how Nate Yarnell gets punched in the face and they need an injury timeout for defense to have a few minutes to talk about it and decide that it's actually a penalty. Like, everybody in the stadium saw Nate Yarnell get punched in the face. It was just as blatant as Guillermo Diaz-Graham last night getting punched in the face. So I don't know why, like, I don't know what, like, and because there was an injury to Clemson, they had to stop, and then they talked about it, and after discussion, they decided there was a penalty. Like, I don't know how you missed it in the first place. And then you had discussion and decide, at least they got the call right after the fact. It took longer than it should have. But at least they got the call right after the fact. As far as the situational awareness, I mean, we talked about that a little bit with the timeout. The play calling inside the red zone, I'll have to look at that a little bit closer and see what they did. TVAX1 says plenty of errors makes it hard to pick 1 or 2, but Gavin Bartholomew jumping on 2nd and 9 at the 16. Then number 3, whiffing the tackle on Klubnik. That at least likely forces a game-tying field goal attempt to get to overtime. Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at Klubnik's long run. I think Donovan McMillan missed him. I think there were a number of missed tackles on that long run. A number of guys who had a chance to get him down. It was a good play call against the defense that Pitt had in. There were a number of guys who had a chance to get him down, though, and they failed. It might not have gotten him down for a loss. He still might have gotten a first down, but you had a chance to get him down before he ran 50 yards for a touchdown. Football Stinks says all these errors revolve around one person, Pat Narduzzi. Year in and year out, his teams are undisciplined and unfocused. Yes, he brought stability to the program, but his time at Pitt has expired. Sure. Fine, whatever. They lost the 3rd game. 10 games into the season, they just suffered their 3rd loss of the year. I don't know. 7-3 is still 7-3. Yeah, Football Stinks goes on to say attendance is poor, recruiting is down, donations are non-existent, and no momentum in the program. You know what? Attendance is always poor. When was attendance not poor? It doesn't, like, in recruiting feels about what it's always been. Recruiting is the same as it was to win the ACC championship and win the Coastal twice. Donations are non-existent. You're criticizing the fan base. I don't think that's quite G Money says college football is not much fun anymore. I've been on YouTube all day. What was fun on YouTube? You watch Sopranos clips? I watch a lot of Sopranos clips on YouTube. YouTube knows I like Sopranos clips, so they keep showing me Sopranos clips. And then I keep watching the Sopranos clips. And then I don't want to watch the whole episode, but I don't. I just watch the clips. College football is still a lot of fun. G Money says, why change your defense on the last drive? I mean, if you're talking about the scheme and the structure, I can't really help you there. Otherwise, they put in their Delta defensive package, which is 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and an extra defensive back. And they went with all 3 safeties. They not Cruz Brookins. They went with PJ O'Brien, Donovan McMillan, and Javon McIntyre playing out there, which is probably the defensive scheme, that Delta package that you would want to have in obvious passing situations, which first down at the 25 with 96 seconds left to go, needing at least a field goal to tie or a touchdown to win, is probably you're going to expect a pass. Now they give up an 18-yard pass, a 7-yard pass, and then the 50-yard draw. I don't know. Let's see. G Money also wants to know, did Fitzsimmons get hurt again? I saw him make plays in the first quarter and then missed him the remainder. Wait, I thought you said you were on YouTube all day. Fitzsimmons played the whole game. 4th drive of the second half. In the 4th quarter, he was on there for a drive when they forced a 3 and out and ended up going down and scoring a touchdown to tie the game at 17. So he's been playing. TJ DiStefano says Pitt sucks and it's the same thing all the time. They'll most likely lose out and get a junk bowl. I don't know. That's most likely. I would say it's unlikely. As a matter of fact, I think they'll still win at Boston College, and I'm not ruling them out for the next week at Louisville. If anything, Clemson coming back and winning this game, and yeah, Clemson had to come back to beat Pitt. Let's not forget. But Clemson coming back and winning this game maybe secured Louisville's fate for losing, because remember, Pat Narduzzi has defeated a ranked opponent 8 years in a row, so he needs one this year. I don't know if there's anything to that. Actually, I haven't checked out any of the scores around the ACC so far today. Oh, Louisville and Stanford. Oh, wait. Stanford just beat Louisville. How about that? So Pitt definitely going to lose out. Well, Louisville, who's top 20 in the country, just lost at Stanford 38-35. SMU beat Boston College by 10. Notre Dame crushed Virginia 35-14. And Syracuse beat Cal 33-25 at Cal, actually. Let's see. That's about it for the ACC. Mark Shoju says, total gut-wrenching loss. I haven't been this sick about any Pitt loss since the basketball team was in the Elite Eight. Really? That's, I mean, I guess. But, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough loss. There's no question about it. Because they had it. I mean, they had a lead in the final 2 minutes. You should win a game if you have a lead in the final 2 minutes. I don't know. Like I said, I think you can be a little encouraged if you want. The Penn State fan chiming in. Good for you. Not reading it. David Allen says, issue is clearly a lack of quality depth on offense. The team was exposed once some key players were injured. Left tackle. Yes, the lack of organization and pre-snap penalties are rough, but it could be connected to talent. If Bell had better offensive line, they likely aren't shifting all the time or using Bart as a blocker, possibly having to compensate for a weakness up front. You know what? We talked about this at some point this week. I thought it was really interesting. I forget where I had this conversation. I feel like it might have been on the live stream or something like that. But up until today's game, and I'll see what the numbers are for today's game, Gavin Bartholomew had pass blocked something like 9 times all season through the first 9 games. Like, he never stayed into block. Like, ever, according to Pro Football Focus. Like, however many passing routes or pass plays he was on the field for, 200, 300, whatever it was, he only blocked 9 times. Which I think is remarkable. They're not keeping him in the block. And maybe that's actually a fault a little bit. Now, we talked about, it must have been on the live stream that we talked about it. I forget exactly. Or maybe it was on, maybe it was the mailbag yesterday, actually. Because somebody asked, like, why not keep Bartholomew into block more? When the tackles are having as many issues as they are, why leave him on an island? Why not keep him into block more? And, I think to some extent, there's spread principles. They want to throw it out of the spread. They want to run it out of the spread too. And, I think maybe Cade Bell views it as, if I bring in an extra blocker, that's one more guy coming into the box. I'm not able to spread it out as well because I'm not, it's one less guy they have to defend in pass coverage. And I'm not going to create as many one-on-one matchups as I want to create. And so I think they continue to spread it out and have, and I don't think today, I don't think Bartholomew really stayed into block much at all. And again, maybe that's a fault. When you have Ryan Baer playing left tackle, after just moving over there a couple games ago, the last game, I guess it was, you have Jackson Brown starting for the first time at right tackle. After last week, Isaiah Montgomery starting for the first time at right tackle. Maybe keep somebody in to help. Whether it's Overman or Bartholomew, like, maybe give him a little help. They don't really do that, though. David Masenda says, I did my part. I made it to today's game. Every other game, including last year, where I was in the ICU with my daughter, Pitt lost. She's still in the ICU, but I got a break to attend today. Need her out. Hey, David, man, it's just football. Shout out to you and your family and everything. We wish the best for you, for sure. Marshoju says, do we have a quarterback controversy? I don't know, but we'll be talking about it all week. Look, shout out to Nate Yarnell, man. Nate Yarnell came in, did a good job. Not great in the first half. Let me see what his first half numbers were. First half, Yarnell was 13 of 20 for 111 yards, 65% completion, 111 yards. Not anything all that great or exciting, but okay. Second half, 21 of 34. I can't do the math on that percentage. 239 yards passing. I think it was better. I think he settled in. I think he found the open guys. And like so much of this offense is just like find the open guy and get him the ball. I mean, that's probably all offenses, right? But that's what was working in this offense early in the season. And it's what seemed to fall apart for this offense or fall off for this offense in the last like 4 games prior to coming into today. Nate Yarnell played better today than Eli Holstein has for the last 4 games. I don't think there's any question about that. On the whole, there were points where you were looking at Yarnell like, what are you doing? Why would you throw that? Why would you make that decision? And there were times where Yarnell, was in a situation where Holstein probably would have run for a decent pickup, and Yarnell couldn't do that. He doesn't have Holstein's mobility. But he connected on the passes. And you know what I think? I don't think it needs to be a quarterback controversy. I think Yarnell's play today maybe allows you to be extra sure and extra careful with Holstein. I still think Holstein at his like top playing capabilities gives you a better chance to win. I do. And so if Holstein is at 100% and and cleared and ready to play, I think you go with him because he's got more upside. He's got the higher ceiling. But Yarnell showed the floor today and showed that his floor is pretty high and that he can get the ball to the open receiver, which is what he did and made some really nice plays. And he had some great throws. Like I say, that throw that Williams didn't catch in the end zone was a great throw. The touchdown throw to Bartholomew was a great throw. And some of the basic throws, like to Mumfield, or swing pass or screen to Desmond Reed that got some big gains, those were really good throws too. Give your players and teammates and skill guys a chance to make plays. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. I think if Holstein is completely back and ready to go, he plays. But I think the threshold for what you need out of Holstein as far as how back he is, it went up. And if Holstein is only here, he's medically cleared, but he's only here, as opposed to here, well, you stick with Yarnell. Whereas if Holstein's up here, then you go with him and roll with it. But I don't. I don't think there's a controversy necessarily, but Nate Yarnell played well today. Let's see. Scroll here. MW Pitt says that game looked like 2 mediocre college teams. Like why? Like why are we like what? Look, I don't understand. I mean, it was a college football game. Like I don't know why we have to think, oh, we just watched 2 of the worst teams. No, I think they're pretty decent. I think Klubnik's been pretty good this year. I think Phil Maffa has been pretty good this year. I think they have really good receivers. I think Clemson still recruits at a really high level and has a high talent level on their team. We watched a good game. I think it was a good college game. You guys are talking to each other here. Garrett Joe says, sorry if this is a bad take, but it feels like the SMU loss has beat Pitt 3 times. Just feels like they were so confident going into that game. Now they're just waiting for something bad to happen. I hear what you're saying, Garrett Joe, but I actually would say the opposite about today. Maybe last week, not even. Here's if I was going to look at like big picture trends and maybe how they affected the psyche of the team, I would say the Cal game and the Syracuse game created some doubt about the offense. The SMU game got out of hand because of some bad plays on defense, and it just felt like there was nothing the offense would be able to do. And then the Virginia game, I think there was a lack of confidence for the offense. I really do. You come into this game, that probably was still persisting to some extent. But by the end of it, I think they should come out of this game with some confidence. No, they didn't get it done. And I don't think it's a loser mentality to take confidence or optimism out of a loss. They didn't get it done, but again, they had a lead on Clemson, top 20 team, in the final 2 minutes. Like, they were good enough to win that game. They just faltered on a couple key plays. And I think that can inspire confidence. That can, maybe this team needed a little bit of a boost of confidence. And ideally, that boost of confidence would come in a win. But short of that, a game like this, I think, can provide a little boost of confidence. Andy Turper says, why did Desmond Reed come out of the game there? I don't know. I don't know why they rotated, just after the 2 minute. Reed was limping a number of times throughout this game. I think he, I think he's taking a beating. How many touches did I say he had? So he had 10 catches and 14 carries. So he had 24 touches, plus the punts, although I don't think he actually returned any punts. Let me just double check that. I feel like he did a fair catch every time. No, he had 2 punt returns for -2 yards. So that didn't work out. I don't know. It was the timeout by Clemson. They go to 2nd and 9 and they bring in Derek Davis. Well, yeah, they brought in Derek Davis on that play. I'm not sure, unless he was just banged up and they had to do that. The final drive, they had Desmond Reed back out there on the final drive. So he was healthy to play, I guess. Let me find another. Scroll through here, see what else you got. We got about 10 minutes left, a little less than 10 minutes. Mark Shilaju says Pitt is down to 2 backs who have seen significant time. If one of these 2 go down in the next 3 games, does Hammond lose his red shirt, or do you think we'll see one of the younger backs? That's a great question, Mark. And maybe I'll ask Pat Narduzzi on Monday about that. I think they'll go with Reed and Davis as long as they can. And then I don't know if they go with Hammond or if they go with Montrevious Lloyd or Joel's Goff. I mean, Goff is available. Che Wabuko is a running back now, apparently. So, I mean, that would be an option as well. It would be tough to lose that extra year for Rodney Hammond in these final 2 games. You'd like to get more out of it because it would really feel like a wasted year because he really hasn't done much all year. RJC Man 38 says Nate did a great job not getting rattled after getting hit that much. You're absolutely right. I have a lot of respect for Nate Yarnell. I have for a while. I think you guys listened to the Morning Pit all summer when I talked about Nate Yarnell and projected his stats of what he done in his 2 starts or 3 starts. You put it over a full season, blah, blah, blah. I have a lot of respect for Nate Yarnell. And I think Nate Yarnell is a good player. People gave me a hard time because I didn't talk about him handing off to Derek Davis for the game-winning touchdown against West Virginia. And that was because there were just so many other things to talk about. But it's not anything personal against Nate Yarnell. I think he's a good player. And I have a lot of respect for how he handled today's game. He was under pressure the whole time. The whole time. I would be curious. I don't know if Pro Football Focus has their numbers for this game up yet. But I would be really curious to see. No, they don't have them up yet. The pressure numbers, if he dropped back 60 times, he had to have been under pressure like 40. Like literally, it had to have been that much. And that actually feels low to think that there were 20 dropbacks where he wasn't under pressure. Would he have had 20 dropbacks? Let's see. He threw 54 passes, was sacked 8 times. So that's 62 dropbacks. And then he ran the ball at least 2 other times. So that's about 64 dropbacks. I'd be shocked if the pressure numbers were less than like 45 on 64 dropbacks. I mean, he was under pressure constantly, and he was getting hit constantly, and he was taking big shots constantly, and he just kept going. Like Nate Yarnell, is exactly what you want, I think, in a backup quarterback of a great team guy, a resilient guy, a guy who's always willing to step in whenever he's called on. And look, if Nate Yarnell sticks with the program after this year, and I have no reason to think he will or won't, I have no idea what he's thinking, but if he sticks with the program this year, they should name a new team guy award after Nate Yarnell. After, All right, 2021, fine. He's a freshman. Kenny Pickett's there. 2022, okay. They brought in Keaton Slovis, fine. 2023, he doesn't get an opportunity until the final 2 games of the season, when he clearly was better than the 2 guys ahead of him. 2024, he's back in the backup role again. And so if he sticks with it again into next year, I think shout out to him. I mean, it's just really impressive to have that kind of resilience, loyalty, whatever you want to call it. Let's see. RJC Man 38 says Narduzzi has to do better at situational awareness. It's a glaring issue the last 10 seasons. I need to see growth on this one, or on this issue. So I think this is tough. This is something I've thought a lot about, and not just about Narduzzi, but just about football in general. I think, what's the best way to say this without making it a cop-out to defend the coaches? Because I'm not just defending Narduzzi here. I'm defending everyone. We all sit in the press box, and fans sit in the stands or watch on TV, and a situation comes up and we say, oh, well, they should do this, or oh, they should do that. And I'll be honest, half of my instincts are wrong. Oh, they should go for it. Half the time, no, actually, no, they shouldn't have gone for it. Oh, they should kick. Half the time, no, they probably shouldn't have kicked. And we all have the benefit of hindsight. And we all have the benefit of not having anything really riding on our decisions or opinions or thoughts on it. I think for a coach, you're in the heat of the moment. You're in the situation. You have a million things to consider and a million things to think about and a million things to go over in your head about what you should do in each situation. And you'd like to think for a coach that going into each play, that coach already has contingency plans made for whatever's going to happen on that play. Okay, if it's this, then I'm going to do that. And if it's that, I'm going to do this. But I just don't know if many people have the brain capacity and the bandwidth to do that, to think like that. And particularly in a high-pressure situation like a football game where you have 40 seconds to make your decision. And not even 40 seconds to make your decision. You have 10 seconds to make your decision or 15 seconds to make your decision. And do I think Pat Narduzzi always makes the right call? No. I think sometimes he gets paralysis by analysis. I think sometimes he just gets in a spot and he's like, we got to do this. Sometimes because that's what you've always done. Sometimes because I just think this is what we should do. And so I don't think he always makes the right decisions, but I think most fan bases feel like their coaches are terrible at timeouts, at fourth down decisions in the NFL, at challenges. It's a running joke about Mike Tomlin and challenges, but I bet most fan bases have the same sort of feeling about their coach. Our coach, God, he's just terrible at clock management. I think most people say that about their coaches. Most fans say that about their coaches. And I think it's tough. I think it's really hard. And I think you can try to plan for every contingency and have it all out on a sheet of paper. And someone in your headphones says, this situation, do this. And you just do it. Because that's what the numbers tell you to do. Coaches, they still like the feel every now and then. John Johnson says, not putting in Matt Altsman on senior night is a fireable offense. I mean, there were a lot of guys who didn't get in. Right? But I have the list of seniors here. Who else didn't play? Jake Frannell didn't get in. Dylan Bennett. Well, he might have played on special teams. I don't know. Matt Altsman. Matt Matrosky. I don't know if he got in. Vardzell. I forget which one it is. Peter. I'm sorry. There have been a couple of Vardzells come through. Those guys didn't. I don't know. Did Matrosky play? I don't know who played. You'd like to play as many seniors as you can. It's unfortunate for Matt Altsman, but I don't know. Scroll through here. RJC Man says the O-line being banged up, they came through despite the loss. I think they had one holding penalty on the offensive line. So, yeah, good for him. Good for them. They also, they had 2 false starts. So 2 of those were on them, but only one holding penalty. So David Allen says they don't suck, but they are inept on offense, mostly due to the loss of 2 most important positions, quarterback and left tackle. Only scored 20 versus depleted Clemson. I don't know if they're inept on offense. That's my point. Is I think this was some of the best offense we've seen since the Carolina game. Particularly in the second half today. That was some of the best offense we've seen out of this team, and a definite improvement over what we saw against Cal, Syracuse, SMU, and Virginia. Definite improvement. Royce Beacom says Clemson consistently was throwing to the left or the right side of the Pitt defense, with the exception of the touchdown that throws up the middle. Yeah, they seem to have some things they wanted to attack, and they were able to get some passes that Pitt was giving them. But you adjust to that, but do you give up something else if you take that away? TVAX1 says the Guillermo Diaz-Graham hit was a surprise to me that it was a flagrant 1. Here's what I understand. How do you call flagrant 1 on the guy and he still gets the basket? I mean, not to go into football or go into basketball from last night, but I mean, the offensive guy gets called for a flagrant 1 in the process of shooting and still gets to keep the basket. I didn't get that. Anthony Tennyson says, let's face it, when under pressure, as of now, the offensive coordinator may be over his head, but he will be good. We're a little better than a mediocre team and probably will not reach the playoffs for years to come, in my opinion. So, Tony, I mean, you say Pitt's a little better than a mediocre team. Maybe you're right. You may be right. You may be wrong. I'm not sure. But I would say, even if they are that kind of average team, 6-win, 7-win team, they stole a couple wins early in the season that should still allow them to get to 9 wins. You know what I mean? Like maybe they are just a 7-win team, but they would finish as a 7-win team without pulling out those wins against Cincinnati and West Virginia. And now that they've got those wins, I think the expectation should still be 9. You guys, I guess I'm catching up on all of your comments from a while ago. And so you guys are catching up on the Louisville-Stanford game and things like that. Let's see. TVAC says one good thing about the game, the game announcers, is that they were calling out the garbage refereeing calls often. Thanks to whomever they were, as Pitt usually gets hosed by the commentators. Well, if you're talking about the football, I think Sean McDonough was there. I forget who else I saw, but he always does a good job. Michael Balcerek? I'm going to go with that. Assume most of the key players are back. They need to hit the portal. All right, here's what they need to hit the portal for. Maybe this would be a good spot for us to cut off unless anybody else wants to be a super chatter and get their comment in. Portal. Offensive line. Do I get... No. Oh, yeah, I got balloons. There they are. Offensive line. Defensive end. Offensive line. Although Sincere Edwards looks like a useful player. He really does. I think they could use a little more impact off the edge, but Sincere Edwards looks like a useful player. I really think so. All right. Let's see if there's anything else we need to get to. All right. I think that's about it. Pitt loses 24-20. An encouraging loss, if such a thing is possible. And I think Everybody can decide for themselves if it is. But they lose 24-20 to Clemson. They fall to 7-3 overall, 3-3 in the ACC. They'll be at Louisville next week, and then at Boston College for the season finale 2 weeks from now. This is a tough one. The game was there. It was there for them to win. Game time still not announced for the next 2 weeks. The game was there for them to win, but I think they showed some encouraging signs. The offense looked as good as it has looked since the North Carolina game. Hopefully something for them to build on going forward. We'll continue the conversation over at Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com to get all the Pitt sports news you can possibly handle. And, of course, message boards where we'll be talking about this game all night long. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com and check out Homefield, homefieldapparel.com for all the best Pitt gear you can possibly hope to find. Promo code PIT24 to get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. I don't have anything home field on today because I wore this to the game, but believe me, it's the softest shirts I have and some of the best Pitt logos or logos for any school across the country. Their collection is unmatched at homefieldapparel.com. Go check it out. Promo code PIT24 to get 15% off your first order. Homefieldapparel.com. Like and subscribe. We appreciate it. Have a good rest of the weekend, Pitt fans. We'll be back with the Morning Pit on Monday morning right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.